Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And on this segment of the show, ladies and gentlemen, I have family law attorney Joanne Monaghan, founder of the law firm Monaghan from Troy, New York. Now, Joanne, an authority in the area of family law, will be talking to you today about a very interesting topic. Today, she's going to be talking about planning for your financial life after divorce. So, if you are one of the many unfortunate divorcing couples in the Troy, New York area, you might want to down tools, log out of Facebook, Twitter, or even Instagram or anything else you happen to be doing. Grab yourself a notepad and pen and listen in to what Joanne has to share with you today. So, with that said, let's not keep waiting any longer. Welcome to the show, Joanne.
Thank you.
So, Joanne, let's jump straight in. Can you briefly share the kinds of people who you serve and the various types of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for your help?
Well, typically, the people that I will meet with initially fall into probably three different categories. There are people who maybe are unhappy in their marriage and they're seeking information about divorce, the impacts of that, what that means before they take any formal steps. And then there are also people who come to me who are really ready to proceed immediately with a divorce and, again, are seeking information specifically about dividing property, financial issues, and so forth. And also people will come to me who are already physically separated and perhaps in the middle of, a custody issues or financial issues that are already underway. And they need help with that situation. Or I do have people who come to me after a divorce has been finalized and issues have erupted post-divorce that then they need help with.
Okay, so it goes without saying then, Joanne, that anything you share with us today is not legal advice or legal assistance. Now, I'm sure in the many years that you've been working in family law, that you've come across many misconceptions out there. People arrive in your office and they've done some research online and found things out and they believe that to be true. However, of all of those misconceptions that you know of, can you share the most common misconception that comes across your table on a regular basis?
Well, that's correct, Stuart. I mean, first of all, I am, discussing this for our purposes today, and it's not meant to give legal advice to anyone, but just information for people to consider if they're struggling with any of these issues. And with respect to a common misconception, I would say the biggest misconception is that people really underestimate their living expense costs after they are separated, have separate residences, going through the divorce process and even post-divorce. What does it really mean? What are my living expenses going to be going forward? Because now you have people who probably have the same income, but they've got two separate residences, and they're trying to pay the bills for maintaining two separate residences with much less income than they had, to start with when they were all living together as a family. And I think it's fair to say that, it's not even just double costs in terms of, power bills and, food and, rent or mortgages and that kind of thing. But also I think the cost of raising children can increase because you've got, kids' clothes that you're maintaining at two different households, shoes, sporting equipment, things like that a lot of time the cost related to the children specifically can double because they're now, maintaining sometimes two homes, basically. And also that depending on the divorce and how this happens, these shifts and changes of people, starting a separate residence, may happen relatively quickly. So people maybe don't understand that, one day you're living together as a family and perhaps a month later, all of a sudden there's two residences, but that doesn't mean that your income or your financial planning has caught up with your newfound circumstances. So I think it's really important to really take a hard look at what that means to maintain your separate residence and understand the resources you're going to have available to you.
Based on the information that you just shared, and obviously keeping your client's confidentiality in mind, Joanne, can you share an example of how you've actually helped someone who came to you with those challenges, with that misconception that you just described, and what transformational results were you able to gain for them?
Well, in that situation, usually what people will look at is their current employment situation, number one. Is it possible to improve that situation, change that situation? And in dealing with our topic of, really people's post-divorce financial life and when you're going through the divorces, looking at how much, income am I going to have available to me? What are my financial resources going to be post-divorce? And a lot of time with these issues, obviously this is a very emotional, mentally, emotionally draining time for people, and it's hard to sometimes focus on sort of these other, sort of hard and fast things that are going to be happening. But I think what we've done in certain situations is look at, is there education and training that's available to someone and going forward where they can improve their employment situation and their resources. So they may want to consider that. Is it possible job change, possible advancement at work? If so, what would it take to make that happen? Sometimes you'll have people who, while they were married, were maybe working part-time, and they are going to need to look at full-time employment. So an example of that would be, someone who perhaps was working in a school system as a part-time teacher, and in discussing that circumstance, there was additional education and training available to that person through their employer, and they took advantage of that during the course of the divorce proceeding. And by the time they got to the point where they were already divorced and now in their new situation with different living expenses, they were able to increase their income by looking at what options and choices they had available to them at that point in time. So encouraging people to explore that, right away, really, and not waiting until after the divorce is settled is something that I recommend. Not waiting until it's all over and the dust is settled to really take a hard look at what are my employment choices, what's my marketability, do I need additional training, those kinds of things. I think people sometimes make the mistake of not really looking at that when they're going through the process.
Okay, fantastic. Joanne, just as a reminder, today's topic is planning for your financial life after divorce. Now, with that in mind, and for those divorcing couples who are out there and they're wanting to know more, Joanne, what's the most common but unknown pitfall that you'd like them to be aware of, regardless of what kind of situation they find themselves in right now?
A pitfall that people don't always consider is that there are tax implications as a result of a divorce. And it's really important to understand all of the implications. Everybody's situation is different, but basically, when you've got issues of child support, that is not taxable to the person who's receiving the support, and the person paying cannot write that off. With respect to spousal support, that is income that's taxable to the recipient, and the person paying can write that off, or becomes non-taxable income to them. Also, if there's a lump sum payment of some kind, or what we sometimes call a distributive award because of other assets in the marriage, like maybe there was a business or property that was owned, there can be different tax implications of what we would call a distributive award. Or if the parties have real property that they're selling or changing title or refinancing, that whole process also has important tax implications to it as well. And it's just really important when you're going through the process and making decisions about these issues, that you understand what that means for you at tax time.
Okay, Joanne, so very briefly, how long have you been practicing family law? How many years?
I've been practicing family law for probably over 20 years now. I did start out working in family court, really dealing mostly with custody and support issues, and then I moved into handling more complex matrimonial issues, which encompasses custody and support, but also a division of property, that's assets and so forth.
In those 20 years then, Joanne, is this something that you're still motivated to do? I mean, if you imagine it's a Monday morning and the alarm clock goes off 6, 7 a.m., whatever the time may be in your part of the world, and you have a full day ahead of you helping clients go through this unfortunate situation of divorce. Is this something that you're still motivated to do then, Joanne?
I feel very motivated to do it. And I feel like, based on my experience, that I have information to share with people that I think is important. Mm-hmm. And because I have handled so many cases over such a long period of time, that I think I'm able to identify the issues that people have and what they're struggling with, and also help them find resolutions. And sometimes that may mean a creative resolution. And I think that my experience helps me do that. And also, of course, with the situation, it's very emotional. And you have to have a lot of compassion for people going through this process as well. And I think I bring that to my clients in my cases. And that is all motivating to me.
Okay, so would it be safe to say that you've handled hundreds of cases throughout your career?
Absolutely. I mean, thousands of cases, easily.
Okay,
yes.
So let's just talk a little bit about your formal background then. Could you just share a little bit about yourself in terms of your formal background, your education, and your experience as it relates to the topic of family law?
Well, I went to Albany Law School in Albany, New York. That's where I graduated from, and then I was admitted to the bar in New York State. And I've not only worked in private practice handling matrimonial actions, I also was a principal court attorney for a local judge, and part of our calendar was handling divorce cases as well. So I do have the perspective from the court's view of when you come into the court system, what these divorce cases look like, what the court sees as what needs to be done with them, how they need to be handled. I was involved in doing research on issues, drafting decisions, conducting conferences on behalf of the judge that I worked for, and I feel that experience helps me as well.
Excellent, excellent. So, Joanne, we are coming to the end of our time today. So, if you'd like to just picture the kinds of divorcing couples who come to you for your help, and they're wanting to know more about planning for their financial life after divorce. Now, with that picture in mind, Joanne, what final thoughts would you like to leave them before we finish up with our last question for today?
The advice I would give is that people would take a long view of their financial futures and plan for that while they're in the middle of the divorce. And that may be in terms of the incomes that they have or other financial resources available to them. So you can take the bull by the horns with respect to planning the future after the divorce starts. And my advice is to be able to stop, take a breath, and look at those things before you make all of these important financial decisions when you're in the divorce process.
Okay, great. So if there is somebody out there who wants to know more about planning for their financial life after a divorce, then, Joanne, how would they be able to find you? How would they be able to contact you?
I do have a website, which is jpmonaganlaw.com. Mm-hmm. And you can make an email inquiry there. Also, I do provide a free consultation, and my phone number here in Troy, New York is 518-272-2110. And those would be the best ways to contact me.
Excellent, excellent. So, yeah, we've come to the end of the show. So, if you're out there driving in your car, listening in right now, or maybe you're tuning in from home or out taking a run and you're listening in on your personal headset, we do have to go. Again, that was family law attorney Joanne Monaghan. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us today, Joanne. You have certainly demonstrated that you are a true educator and advocate for your clients' success. So thank you.
Thank you, Stewart.
You are so welcome, Joanne. And I'd even like to say a bigger thank you to you, our listener. Without you, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have any work to do. We'd have nobody to listen into us. So thank you for joining us on this very, what I can only describe as insightful and informative conversation with one of the leading family law attorneys in the Troy, New York area today. Again, her name was Joanne Monaghan. Do remember her name. Make sure you check her out. Give her a call. Send her an email. I'm sure you're going to be in the right place to get started. So again, my name is Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more leading divorce professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So, until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.